Percent Podcast.
Okay, we're live. This is Matthew, and I'm back with my dude Rizzle for another special interview on the Matthew and Rizzle Show. Today, our guest is a developer evangelist at Blockstack. His name is Joe. He's going to tell us all about what Blockstack is doing to make the world a little bit less evil and what they've been doing to build out a powerful decentralized computing network on top of the Bitcoin blockchain. Excited to get into this. Blockstack is an OG project in the space, a lot of positive associations, a lot of work and development. So I'm really excited to have Joe hop on the show. So welcome, Joe.
Thanks a lot for having me. Certified anti-evil developer evangelist, Joe Bender here at your service. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and it'd be cool if we could get started with a little bit of background on yourself, like where you're coming from, what your background is, and then we can jump into explaining what Blockstack is today.
Yeah, that sounds perfect. I'll give you the too long didn't read. Grew up in Pittsburgh, spent my entire childhood and education there, went to the University of Pittsburgh, got my bachelor's in information science, and then was an ultimate frisbee junkie, so had to keep going to school to keep playing ultimate frisbee, obviously. So went back and got my my graduate degree and got a master's in information science. Fortunately, once frisbee ended, I realized having a master's was actually a good thing, in the end, and decided to use it and throw it in the car and go to New York City. My buddy was a lot more plugged into crypto and blockchain back then, and who knows what the first point of contact was, but shot me some Ethereum thing, and actually learned about Ethereum kind of before Bitcoin. I'd probably heard of Bitcoin, but learned more about blockchain technology through Ethereum. Fortunate enough to get connected with Joe Lubin and worked at Consensus for 3 years, all during the 2017 ICO boom, CryptoKitties, DeFi, just you name it, all of the peaks and valleys of the crypto roller coaster I was hanging on for dear life at Consensus for. And you guys are in blockchain. Anyone listening to this might be in blockchain. You age tenfold in blockchain, not only physically, but intellectually too. You learn a lot in a short amount of time in blockchain. So had a lot of fun at Consensus. The Ethereum community was really vibrant. All the ETH global events, going to DevCon and ETH Denver, and just seeing projects come out of the woodwork and try new innovative use cases on blockchain. It was crazy. And stepped away from Consensus earlier this year in February and joined Blockstack as a developer evangelist, and has been an awesome transition to just a different technology, different communities. Had been ingrained in the Ethereum ecosystem for so long, was kind of really intriguing to get a different perspective on blockchain and kind of dive into Bitcoin world a little bit, and opened my eyes to a less tribal view of crypto, and more crypto is more about blockchain than individual tokens. Let's kind of all work together to make this work. As for Blockstack, is like we just said, blockchain years are much shorter. The fact Blockstack has been around for 5+ years is kind of impressive. An old geezer in the space by this point. Yeah, Munib Ali and I think Ryan Shea back in the day had a lot of crazy ideas. We're hanging out at Princeton, throwing around a lot of intellectual network level ideas, less like we want to build a blockchain, more there's a problem and we want to solve it, and let's use blockchain to solve it. So Blockstack kind of launched and made the mission of creating a user-controlled internet, a user-owned internet. Not to go too into the historical weeds, but the internet is awesome. It's super cool. And we had some cool decentralized P2P file transfer protocols, the .torrent call, and back in the day with LimeWire and Kazaa. The original internet started as a pretty decentralized thing, but it soon gravitated to these big centralized walled gardens of data and harvesting your private information for advertisers. So what we want to do is shift back to that early conception of the internet, where it is owned by the public. It's a public utility, a public infrastructure that should be supported by everyone, and everyone should have equal access and rights to privacy on that network. So the interesting thing about blockchain technology is that wasn't really possible until blockchain in a digital format. Blockchain is simply like a tool that let people take control of the infrastructure instead of profit motivated corporations, because as much fun as it is sharing a cat photo on Instagram or putting out some thought leadership on Twitter, or how easy it is to pay your friends on Venmo, Facebook owns all your data, Twitter owns all your thought leadership, Venmo is looking at all the people that you're paying and just constructing a map of your lifestyle and the things you like to spend money on. It's just a dangerous world that we've kind of gravitated into, where the digital world is no longer an open space. It's no longer like a totally free space. It's kind of monopolized by a bunch of different by the FANG companies that we've come to know and love so much. So what Blockstack is doing is creating the software for that user-owned internet, the software that leverages blockchain and enables the new generation of applications where devs and users interact fairly, securely, less cloak and dagger, less click to accept terms and conditions. We just want to use the blockchain to build protocols, developer tools that enable a more like open internet, all focused on digital rights for the consumers. So we thought, how do we do that? We really like Bitcoin. We think Bitcoin's cool. There's 1 trillion blockchains right now, but Bitcoin is like that old tried and true pair of jeans. It's always going to be there, and it's reliable and secure. I don't know if a pair of jeans can be secure, but we really believe that any of this new expressive user-controlled internet should be anchored to Bitcoin because of a lot of logical reasons. It's kind of the only crypto that's a household name at this point. Even if your grandma doesn't understand block times, gas limits, or elliptical curve signatures, she might have heard of Bitcoin on Silicon Valley or seen a Bitcoin QR code on that graffiti. It's kind of our Trojan horse to the mainstream of showing what crypto can do, how powerful it is, how well adopted it actually is, more than a lot of people think it is in the normal world. And that's kind of all the soft benefits of it, of how ubiquitous it's become. But the hard benefits of it is just how secure it is, and how the market dominance of it and the security, the secure features of it, it's much less expressive, a lot less attack vectors. But that is exactly what makes it secure, is that it is so simple. It's kind of like the lowest common denominator implementation of crypto. And well, a lot of people may think that's a shortcoming of it. A lot of these meme coin, emoji coin diehards right now, yield farming and open and CDPs and all sorts of crazy DeFi stuff, they may think like, look at Bitcoin. That's literally a horse and carriage compared to our DeFi sports car. They have ground to stand on. Yes, they do. A lot of these dApp chains have much more expressive programming languages and more complex functionality that just lets dApp founders and engineers do crazier stuff. But I really think that that Bitcoin is a necessary simplicity in the blockchain space. It's kind of the standard. The control group, while all other protocols are the experiment group. It has unparalleled security, unparalleled consistency, and can just be relied upon. So when we're spinning up a new blockchain, we're like, electricity is a thing, and people are hating on blockchains for consuming lots of electricity. There's really no reason to totally do another consumption of electricity to secure a totally independent protocol. So what Blockstack did was thought, how do we recycle Bitcoin's energy, use a chain that's already major player and obviously king of the blockchain hill, but also add all of that expressive dApp functionality that people are honestly hungry for. Like, if you are a Bitcoin maximalist saying like, oh, DeFi, what a craze, like I'm just going to sit here on my orange throne of Bitcoin and let all these other cool experiments phase out until Bitcoin's the only one left. If that's your conviction, I hate to break it to you, but you are wrong. There are much more intriguing use cases for blockchain than just a store of value or just a digital gold sort of currency. I think that the most interesting stuff that's happened on blockchain has been in the last year or so with a lot of the DeFi projects and crazy cryptographic mechanisms that are just chopping up and mixing up crypto in all sorts of different ways and giving you liquidity provider tokens and secondary markets and adaptive currencies, all these cool monetary mechanisms that literally were not possible before blockchain. That's like, I want to keep bringing it back to that, where it's like blockchain is genuinely extending monetary functionality in ways that have never been possible with normal fiat or banknotes or any sort of traditional currency. So to tie it all back together, let's just zoom all the way back out. Blockstack anchoring to Bitcoin. How are we doing it? With a new proof of transfer consensus mechanism. We have adopted a totally novel consensus mechanism that is using Bitcoin in a really cool, new, interesting way. Little history. There's proof of work, where you're consuming electricity to secure the network. There's proof of stake, where you are locking up a certain amount of value to secure the network. Blockstack Stacks blockchain started with a proof of burn consensus mechanism, which was a cool novel use of Bitcoin, where miners are burning Bitcoin to signal participation in the mining mechanism. But we love Bitcoin, so you never want to be burning that stuff. Bitcoin's good stuff. Also, feel free to stop me and ask questions. I go at I go at 1,000,000 miles an hour, only one speed. Bitcoin is great. You never want to be burning Bitcoin. So the Charmander to Charmeleon evolution of proof of burn was from proof of burn to proof of transfer. So instead of burning that Bitcoin and sending it to an invalid Bitcoin address where it will be locked up forever, which is cool and all, it's showing that the miners are committed to the chain if they're willing to burn Bitcoin, but we can do something better with that. And that is where stacking comes into play. And stacking, not to be confused with staking, although it's similar to staking, is when, let's say you're a block stacker hanging out on Stacks 2.0, you got your Stacks currency, the native value on your protocol, you're just holding it, you're a good actor and a friendly participant. Let's say you want to uphold the security of the network, add some value to it. So you're going to lock up those Stacks tokens and become a stacker. Let's say you got some excess Stacks that you're not using and you want to make it work for you. You can lock up those Stacks tokens much in the same way that people would lock up 32 ETH to be a validator on ETH2. It's just a simple declaration of sending a transaction saying lock this amount of tokens. And since those stackers are adding value to the network by putting stacks on it, they're adding security to the network by increasing the total value of the network and just the all the good stuff that comes with that, transaction throughput and just the amount of currency that is flowing through the network and being locked up on it. We believe those stackers should be compensated for their participation in the network. And that is where the Bitcoin goes. So miners are sending Bitcoin, transferring Bitcoin to compete to lead a block on the Stacks 2.0 blockchain. And then that Bitcoin they are committing is being rewarded to the stackers on the protocol. So right there, boom, welcome to DeFi land. Even the core consensus mechanism, in my opinion, is a cool interplay of multiple currencies. So in a way, kind of DeFi-esque. You are locking up your Stacks tokens, receiving Bitcoin for it. Hey, let's say you want to be a miner too as a stacker. Then you're just getting a discount on your mining because you're getting a little bit of Bitcoin from stacking. So that is Stacks 2.0 and proof of transfer and what the long rant was kind of leading to. The proof of transfer consensus mechanism, we've been in testnet mode for a long time. Like I said, Blockstack started with Stacks 1.0, which used that proof of burn mechanism. Back then, we were kind of just focused on data portability and authentication and logging in. You might have heard of Blockstack ID. There's a couple of apps you can log into with Blockstack ID. That was our focus before. the shift to Stacks 2.0 is bringing it all back to the consensus mechanism and the evolution of the Stacks blockchain. So what is the big deal going on this Thursday? We are transitioning from the argon phase of the testnet. We love noble gases. All of our testnets phases are named after noble gases. I think noble gases. I know it's gases, but I'm really bad with my periodic table. It could be like another categorization of gases. Yeah, I like the term noble gases. Feels very regal. We were in the argon phase for a long time. We started with neon, and that was just like connect your node to the network. Then we moved on to argon, and that implemented mining, but it was still using that proof of burn mining. This Thursday, we are transitioning over to the Krypton phase of the testnet. Superman will be pleased. And that is implementing that proof of transfer consensus mechanism. So this Thursday is like Blockstack Christmas. We are all on the edge of our seat with excitement that the community is finally going to get to sink their teeth into this new feature, experiment with proof of transfer mining, test out sending X and Y amounts of Bitcoin to see if they can lead the block. Stackers can start testing out the Bitcoin rewards from just the mining stacking interplay there. And yeah, you could try stacking and mining and seeing the economics there and like balancing the incentives of how much Bitcoin do I want to commit? How much Bitcoin am I receiving from stacking? How many stacks do I have to lock up? I'm like in the 3 edges of, or 3 points on that triangle of decision making in Stacks 2.0 world. Yeah, so Thursday, really looking forward to that. Pass it on back to you guys. Got any specific questions or anything?
Dude.
Yeah.
Holy crap, dude. So, yeah, I mean, well, all right, going all the way back to your introduction, I just want to say, like, it's pretty dope to have 3 Pennsylvania boys all talking, even though we're in different parts of the world.
Oh, hell yeah. Where are you guys from?
Outside of Philadelphia.
Ooh, Philly. Okay. No, we can still celebrate Pennsylvania. We can. Yeah. Eagles aren't doing too good this year.
Yeah. I actually went to Pitt for a couple years for undergrad before I transferred to Korea University out here in Seoul.
So, oh, amazing, man. H2P.
Yeah. So, and then your whole explanation about Blockstack is, well, it may surprise you, but it's exactly how I thought about Blockstack. This kind of like Ferrari suite of software that is just like super powerful. Sounds like it does all the things. But our listeners are obviously more technical, but they're also super involved in NFT land. So really consumer facing end products. They like to get their hands dirty and make things. So I'm curious, like this Thursday, when Stacks 2.0 comes off of testnet and folks can get their hands dirty, I'm curious, like what, if any, like consumer-facing products or features could people expect to be able to get their hands on?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this Thursday is less about like all the exciting end products that will result from it and more about the like, oh, I'm going to get yelled at for saying this, but the boring protocol level stuff. Not boring at all, just sometimes really dense and technical and hard to understand what's going on under the hood of the blockchain, kind of replacing the engine of our blockchain, the core consensus protocol, what it is. As for like consumer facing applications relating to the stuff going on this Thursday and the change of consensus mechanism, we're running a hackathon called Hack Stacks. It's launching in like 7 days. We wanted to launch it a week after Krypton launched to just give a week for reliability issues to get sorted out and to make sure the chain's purring away before hackers get at it. But that hackathon is going to be totally focused on making those like beautiful consumer facing UIs and applications that will make stacking and mining much easier. Much like a couple months ago when we first launched testnet, it was all done through command line, pretty technical, had to download all the libraries and dependencies and stuff. And then we had a couple hackathons, and the next thing you know, we have all these beautiful web apps for calculating your stacking returns and all sorts of much more easily digestible ways to like interact with the core protocol. So that's kind of what we're hoping with this next hackathon. Obviously, stacking and mining from the bat will be from the command line, much like you connected your node or started mining in the last two phases of testnet. It'll be following through a tutorial, getting your node all set up, downloading the Stacks blockchain from GitHub, and getting your proof of transfer miner all configured. But what we're hoping with the Hackstacks hackathon is that it will result in some much more accessible web applications for just connecting using your Blockstack ID and using HTML to commit a certain amount of Bitcoin or stacks and make that a lot easier. Those applications will obviously be aimed at like protocol level stuff and stacking and mining. As for more generalized applications and the fun stuff, the less boring stuff, as I am ashamed to say, that is where Clarity kind of comes into play. And give like a little rundown of Clarity now. It's our smart contract programming language, much like when we realized Bitcoin needed more expressive functionality, a more complex programming language. That is kind of why we created Stacks 2.0 as the blueprint for how you don't have to forsake Bitcoin to be able to have a dApp chain. So with the launch of, I think, the Argon phase, we unveiled the Clarity smart contract programming language. Super cool programming language, similar to Solidity, but a couple of different design principles. And that is enabling dApps, DAO, DeFi, CryptoKitties, meme coin, yam coin, potato coin. And now that Stacks 2.0 has that smart contract programming language, it's all up for grabs. Anything you want to build, any cool dApp that you've seen on another chain is able to be built on Stacks 2.0. We had 2 smart contract hackathons, and I'm like still picking my jaw up from the floor on some of the stuff that was built. Like, it's bad when like the hackers understand the language more than myself, and I'm the developer Evangelist. These people are building the craziest stuff. In the first round, we had a total replica of Uniswap built, just trustless token swap on Clarity. And with that came an SRC20 token implementation. There's the ERC20 token on Ethereum. If you take a glance at the CoinMarketCap top 100, most of those are ERC20 tokens. It's just having the ability to create a new token and host it on a chain is so critical to having these dApp chains spring up. So seeing an SRC20 standard on Stacks 2.0 outlining all the rules for a new token, you need all those special methods of minting the token and transferring it, and the initial supply, all that stuff, all the parameters you need to create a new token possible on Stacks 2.0. And then that same guy in the last hackathon built a total replica of Ampleforth on Stacks 2.0, which, if you don't know about that, it's like an adaptive currency where the supply is constantly changing and like your balance in your wallet changes instead of like the price. And there's liquidity geysers in Ampleforth, they call, where if you provide liquidity, you get a liquidity token similar to the like Uni token that was unveiled this week or last week. And then you can have that liquidity token on a secondary market. All of that crazy DeFi stuff is starting to spring up thanks to Clarity. And it's also, for me personally, an interesting like narrative. I had joined Ethereum at the beginning, right as smart contracts were taking off and dApps were springing up. I still remember wasting an entire day at Consensus trading CryptoKitties and probably making more than I was getting paid that day for my real job. But it's funny to see that type of explosion of experimentation now happening again on an entirely new chain, and seeing all these different utilities pop up and people really take the programming language and run with it. And I mean, we do have the added benefit of people being a little bit familiar with smart contract languages lately. A lot of the people experimenting on Clarity were accomplished Solidity devs, and it's an easy translation of knowledge of just, oh, okay, this is how the syntax is different. This is how I'm declaring variables differently. Oh, okay, I can write a smart contract in Clarity. We've seen that happen time and time again, and just getting feedback from the devs and hearing about the benefits of Clarity, and they're really liking not having to worry about gas right now. I was messing around with Ethereum the other day and was kind of shocked at a $20 gas fee. But yeah, just really excited to see more and more dApps pop up on Stacks 2.0. And like I said, a lot of our hackathons have been focused on pretty technical, deep stuff such as smart contracts or stacking and mining tools. And I think once we lay all this groundwork and we build the basement and the water heaters working and everything, then we'll start to see all of the more like substantive total package projects emerge. Yeah, right now we're seeing you can delegate as stacking. So if you don't have enough stacks to stack on your own, you can pool together and delegate stacking. So we're seeing like cool front ends for that coming out, and front ends for entering a certain Bitcoin price, a certain stacks price, and how much you're willing to stack, and then it calculating like your potential returns on stacking. Yeah, a lot of the stuff we're seeing right now is more of like developer tools as we get stuff up to snuff. I keep referring to it as like building an amusement park. Right now we're like hiring the entertainers and building the roller coasters and getting that cotton candy machine going. So then when mainnet launches and the gates open to our amusement park, there is a bunch of stuff to do and play with, and it's an engaging place to be. You know, I think that's why the Ethereum dApp scene and DeFi has done so well the last couple of months, because it's an exciting, rewarding place to be. Not only financially and in the monetary aspect, but great community, and you learn a lot and learn a lot about economics and macro and micro and the incentives and game theory. So yeah, we're just doing everything we can to make Stacks 2.0 an engaging and captivating place to spend your time and participate in with your value in your crypto. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, our slogan is can't be evil, because in the early days Google's slogan was don't be evil. And at the time that was extremely lauded and praised as like a genius branding move and marketing move, and they were on the rise as one of the biggest tech conglomerates on the planet. And it was kind of a proclamation of like, don't be scared. Like, we're just trying to make the world a better place. I think like that term is so cliche now, but back in the day, like that stuff used to actually get said, like, we're making the world a better place. So our kind of cynical spin on that was can't be evil. And it's kind of just saying like Munib says you should never be in the position of power where you have to decide if you want to be evil or not. And it's funny that Google's "Don't be evil" slogan kind of has that assumed. Maybe the genius marketer didn't think that one through very well, but Google had that much power, and a long time ago they were making the decision to not be evil. But I think they had the right at some point to change their mind and maybe decide to care less about being evil. Yeah. So I using that as our slogan, and oh my gosh, I'll never forget at a DevCon in Prague, I think, Blockstack put up a big billboard that said "Can't be evil" right outside of the main venue. And I didn't work for Blockstack then, and I remember seeing that and being like, "Wow, that's so ballsy and like an awesome move." And I think what it refers to is just the technology and blockchain, and the fact that it's not even giving you the position to be evil. And I think to your question of like how Blockstack and Stacks 2.0 enables that, on top of the like just saying blockchain, like the apps are built on blockchain, so they're more secure. I think the biggest thing is like the data portability and the self-sovereign identity and authentication aspect of it. So in the eventual end game utopia of this thriving dApp ecosystem on Stacks 2.0, instead of logging in with a traditional email address and password, you will be using your Blockstack ID. And it's all about data portability and only leasing out the certain information that you want to let that product or application have access to. I always liken it to like going to a bar in college or something. You go to a bar and there's a bouncer there, and you hand the bouncer your ID, and they look down and they're checking to see how old you are, to see if you're let in the bar. But they're also getting your home address and your driver's license number and your eye color and your hair color. And are you a blood donor? And like all of this extraneous information. Like, I don't want some big scary person in a leather jacket with a toothpick, like knowing where I live. And I think that's a perfect microcosm of like the current internet. You know, when you are logging in with Facebook or logging in with Google, or not even that, just using a normal email address and leaving a trail of cookies and certain like information data points around, and signing up for all these newsletters and using Instagram and then getting ads about a post you just looked at. We're under constant bombardment from this massive map of data that the advertising world has constructed about us. I would be so baffled. I read a tweet the other day that was like, I want to see the map. Like, I just want to see my data. Like, I know it's being harvested, but I want to know what they have on me. And I think it would be truly mind-boggling for anyone to look at the persona that the advertising world has created for you, and not only how spot on it would be, but I think it would maybe even know who you are as a person better than yourself sometimes, you know, because it ignores all of your personal biases and preconceptions and just gives you the hard data of the way you are interacting with the internet. So what data portability is all of your information and private information, email address, birthday, amount of crypto you own, stuff like that, is you pick and choose what you want an application to have access to. So there's an application on Blockstack called Block Survey, where it's just simple surveys. It's like, what's the survey website? It's like Survey Monkey or something that most people use. And all you need to use that application is your name and email. That application doesn't need information, doesn't need your social security number. It doesn't need to know how much crypto you have. And in that way, you are less of a product and more of more of an internet explorer of sorts. I like to think of it as that, of you are in your ship in the ocean of the internet, and you are pulling up to port at these different websites. And when you do, it might say, hey, we need to know your name, your date of birth, and how much Uniswap token you're willing to commit. So you only give them access to that sort of information. And we'll see that with a lot of different applications on Blockstack as you log in, and it will show you a snippet of the type of information that the application wants to access. So it's always giving you feedback instead of scrolling through like 100 pages of a terms and condition about like all the ways they're going to steal your life and information and use it against you.
I have a question about that. I mean, of course, not having to log in or sign into things and like leave a data trail with like all your personal information and your parents and your great grandparents and things like that. We're all like interacting with decentralized web. We're going to be leaving a different type of data trail, right? We're going to be spending things, buying things. And there's definitely going to be a way to construct like personas and link folks together and help with discovery and things like that. Like, is there any potential issue with the new data streams and data trails that folks will be leaving out in the open? Is privacy of those actions going to become something super paramount for folks like in the DeFi space, maybe wanting to hide their transactions and the amounts that they're transacting for or something like that? Like, it feels like this is going to be a never ending kind of like Medusa or whatever. Like, there's going to be another snakehead that rears its head when it comes to privacy and data on the internet.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like even the way you're phrasing it demonstrates just like general uncertainty about like what the future will be like. And there's a special permanence with blockchain that is daunting, that the history is always there, and that dark web drug purchase you made back in college will always be associated with that wallet address.
Dark.
Yeah. And I think it's less of like a Stacks 2.0 specific and more of just like a blockchain in general question. And yeah, you see the craziness this past week of people who used multiple addresses with Uniswap to obfuscate their identity and leave less of a transaction history trail were actually rewarded by getting airdropped more Uni tokens. It's funny to see that type of like operational security being rewarded. I like that. Yeah, it's a really good question, and there's no perfect answer with a bow on it. And you see so many attempts of like crypto tumblers and Tornado Cash trying to obscure like paths of crypto. And obviously with every high profile exploit and hack, there's always like the mad dash to try to uncover where the funds are going and who is benefiting from it. Yeah, I don't know exactly how like the self-sovereign identity space will evolve, but I do know that it's definitely making people think more about it conscientiously and deliberately. Whereas I feel like in Web 2.0, it was like hide it as much as possible. Just make it like as easy as possible for the user to get to the free app. And that is like what caused a lot of users to sacrifice their data for ease of use and accessibility. I think blockchain, the stakes are even higher because it has value attached to it. You're not just sending around photos or videos or microblogging posts. It is your currency and your wealth and your capital and your ability to do things, especially because like all the actions done on a blockchain are with value, that the amount of value you have is like directly proportional to the potential actions you can do on the network and the amount of and that's not even factoring in like the market and the effect that you can have on the market. Yeah, good question. I just don't know how it's going to evolve. I think that it's a multi-wallet future. I think people will have like certain wallets dedicated for certain applications. I think that there's a lot of different attempts right now to remedy the situation, and it's coming up with a lot of great experiments, and we're learning a lot of lessons. Like you look at ENS or the Ethereum name service and attaching a certain .ens name to your profile. That can be super useful when you're trying to have a public persona. Maybe you're using 3box and you're making like a really public ETH address for public experimentation and posting about your DApp tinkerings on Twitter. But that's much less helpful when you're trying to like stay private and move around your vault or crypto you're ashamed of having. Let's say you're a waifu coin whale and you're ashamed of it. You don't want anyone knowing that address. Stuff of that nature. I think I logged into Uniswap to check out my uni the other day, and I didn't even realize I had an ENS name associated with that address. So I log into Uniswap and it's like, hey there, joebender.eth. And I'm like, oh, great, my public name associated with an account. And I would consider myself a crypto pro, and even I didn't know that. I bought some ENS name years ago and forgot about it, and I kept using that wallet. So there's a lot to consider, and I think it's just teaching conscientiousness. You just got to think about your data and how you're using it. Yeah, I'm certainly excited to see. And like I said, it's can't be evil refers to just building the technology in a way that will make things better. So I don't know how the provenance of your crypto will track in the future, but I do know that blockchain is a much better foundation for that to be built on than Web 2.0 world. Yeah, that's a good question. First of all, I think I always refer to proof of transfer as a blueprint, because we are obviously anchoring Stacks 2.0 to Bitcoin, but that mechanism is almost a chain agnostic blueprint. You could use proof of transfer to anchor into another proof of work blockchain. So I think our very core consensus mechanism is demonstrating a certain level of interoperability and flexibility. The fact that the new consensus mechanism could be compatible with a myriad of different chains could be appealing to dApp founders. I think our scalability benefits are quite obvious. Our main Stacks blocks are tied 1-to-1 with Bitcoin blocks. So who knows Bitcoin block time now, 10 to 15 minutes or something. But the main blocks will be in lockstep with Bitcoin. But what Stacks has is these micro blocks that allow there to be a boatload of micro blocks in between the Stacks blocks, which makes for quasi infinite transaction throughput, in that all of those Stacks microblocks are bundled into a single Stacks block and then Stacks transaction to the Bitcoin chain. So in that way, definitely some less scalability concerns than ETH1. I think the transition from ETH1 to ETH2, it would be stressful as a dApp founder right now. The other big thing is I was talking about those clarity design principles and how it differs from Solidity. Obviously, Solidity is really familiar, so we wanted to kind of have it be similar in a sense that it would be easy to start getting started on Clarity if you had already made smart contracts in the past. But one of the biggest things is Clarity is super predictable and has very unambiguous syntax, and it is interpreted. It is not compiled. Solidity is compiled into bytecode through the EVM, and what is actually being executed on the blockchain, you would need to be a robot to read it. Clarity is interpreted, not compiled, deployed onto the blockchain exactly as you see. What you see is what you get. WYSIWYG. Crazy blockchain acronyms. And then that makes it so easy to audit it, whether you're a professional auditor or you're just a casual onlooker on GitHub. It makes the contracts really accessible for anyone to get started with. And it's also decidable. I won't go super into the weeds on this, but it is deliberately not Turing complete. And everyone always loves to champion Solidity and Ethereum for being Turing complete, Turing completeness. Everyone loves Alan Turing. Benedict Cumberbatch movie, woo, functionality. Computers used to be as big as rooms. Nah, I think Turing completeness has been a cloak and daggery, buzzwordy computer science word in the space. And it has actually forsaken Solidity devs a little bit in that, look at the gas fees right now. I spent $20 to sell Uniswap the other day, and it gas limits and block limits and the amount of computational cost that your contract is going to have when it's deployed to the blockchain. It's just like a developer's worst nightmare to be juggling all of that during the development process. I mean, coding is already hard and takes a lot of taking in a lot of different factors. Like, I mean, if your directory has a bunch of different contracts and a bunch of different files and a front end, a React front end, and it's interacting with the back end blockchain, and you need multiple transactions to do this one thing. Thinking about all of that and then adding like high gas costs and gas frustrations on top of that would just, I mean, I see why Gnosis jumped ship from Ethereum to XDAI this week. Like, it's just not sustainable to think as an app founder. If you are, so you have employees, you're trying to feed families, you need the infrastructure that your project is built on to be consistent. And you need to know that if sushi or a kitty comes out of nowhere and clogs the network, that you will still be able to function as a project. And I think that is going to be one of the biggest incentives for people to try out Stacks 2.0. Just making smart contracts and incorporating them into your dApps is going to be like a much less painful process. And I think we just have like little quality of life improvements sprinkled throughout the language and the way it was structured that make it a nice place to develop and build your project on.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how the developers approach the smart contract development on Stacks and what the end benefits to users will be. And it's going to be really cool to have you guys come back to the Whip on Thursday to talk more about that when the mainnet launch happens. Hopefully we'll have some developers or folks that'll be curious to experiment on Stacks that day, so we can get some experimentation happening ASAP.
Yeah, really looking forward to that.
Yeah. And well, to kind of like wind down the episode, because we like to try to keep things on the shorter end. One question we like to finish with is it's a pretty personal one. We like to kind of pillage through our guests' crypto wallets and see what they have sitting in there. So I know you start off Consensus, you're OG Ethereum head. I'm sure you got a bunch of crypto kitties in there, but like, what else do you have in your crypto wallets sitting around these days?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, I still really believe in the Ethereum project. It's kind of weird not being knee deep in that community anymore, because that's where I spent so much of my blockchain career. But as I also said, I really liked breaking out of it a bit and getting a more open-minded view on crypto. Yeah, I won't lie. 2 years ago in the trenches of Ethereum land, I was hating on Bitcoin so much and just like Bitcoin maximalist, and was like, wow, you can't do anything with it. Like, what are you doing? And it's been really nice to gain some clarity and perspective of like coming out of that ecosystem. And I feel like I have a much less unbiased approach now. And like, I remember when I worked on Ethereum, it's like the flippening is imminent. And now I'm working Bitcoin, and it's like, look at Bitcoin's market cap. Like, you are foolish if you think that's like happening anytime in the next couple months. Like, a couple DeFi projects come out of nowhere and people think Ethereum's about to do the damn thing. Yeah, back in the day, wow, this is such a good question. I have a bunch of tokens from like early Consensus projects that were really cool. I still really think Grid Plus is an interesting project. They kind of set up their own energy grid down in Texas and are working with energy credits and tokenizing electricity. And you could produce a bunch of electricity from photovoltaic cells on your roof and sell it to your neighbor. What else we got? Wow, this is such a funny question. Holy crap. I think like Decentraland's really cool. I'm like into VR, so like I bought Mana way back in the day and was messing around in their multiverse. I think BAT is really cool in its integration into Brave, and just, I mean, I talked a lot about how evil advertisers are on this podcast, and I think a way to compensate people for ethical advertising is always a step in the right direction. Wow, this is such a personal question. I got some ZRX from way back in the day. They're just like always switching it up and doing new stuff. Yeah, I don't own any of them, but just like so interested in all the new crazy stuff, Yearn Finance and Sushi Swap. And I think there's just like so much kicking of the tires of blockchain going on lately, and just like pushing it to the limit and really seeing how much desire there are for these types of projects. And I think if it's demonstrated one thing, it's like people are ready to play with their crypto. Like we want to do interesting things with it. And like people are waiting on the sidelines for the next cool thing.
And then if you want to let folks know where they should pay attention to, like where they should go when the mainnet launch happens, let them know the channels.
So recently, Blockstack PBC has decided to shift away from Slack. We are destroying our Slack, and we are gravitating into the Blockstack Discord, which is already a thriving community of awesome Blockstackers. And we did that just so we could be closer to the community, more accessible, have a lot of our like workplace channels we have made public, just so people, we realized we're doing a lot of decentralization lately. We just formed a foundation. We formed a new entity called Freehold. We're really trying to decentralize our community. And we realized so much of our conversation, so little of it is private and like NDA and should be sensitive and kept from the community. So it's been cool doing a lot of our just like general conversation about work in the Discord that anyone can see. So I would first recommend getting up in our Discord. It's been really cool. We got the server boosted, all sorts of badges and gifts and emojis. We have daily stand-ups in the voice channels, and people sharing everything from the project they're working on to the meal they ate that morning. Discord's been a blast to kind of hang out in. Yeah, I mean, I could rifle off certain communication channels forever. Just go to blockstack.org, and we're uploading a bunch of cool new videos to our YouTube channel featuring yours truly. Broke out my like Photoshop sketching skills to make some awesome amateur videos. Our Twitter forum, our Blockstack forum is great for like longer form posts. Let's say you're running into a roadblock in a tutorial and you need to spell it out for someone to help you out. Forum's a good place for that. Town hall at the end of the month. We are just in pedal to the metal right now. Since the mainnet, since testnet launch back in like April, it's just nonstop hackathons, nonstop testnet phases, forming of new entities, AMAs. I've been doing Telegram AMAs and Russian communities and Singapore communities. It's full court press right now on just educating people about Stacks 2.0 and building all the cool developer tools I was talking about, and then the eventual fully fledged apps. Yeah, I think really any of the Blockstack properties have been a lot of fun to hang out in lately.
Awesome. So we'll definitely leave all those channels in the show notes. And I just wanted to thank you, Joe, for taking all the time to get into the weeds with us and tell us literally everything that's going on over at Blockstack. I think everyone's going to be excited to hear all that.
Yeah, no problem at all. I really appreciate you guys having me on. Your show's awesome. I was checking it out on Spotify the other day and was really looking forward to coming on. And am anticipating this episode. You guys are great. Thanks for having me.
Cool. Thank you.
Son,